Hello and welcome to this bonus day for the Return to the Mother Online Summit. And what a big week it has been due to the volume and the quality of presenters covering such a variety of topics. I've decided to put my presentation, my sort of wrapping up of the conference separate. It's an extra bonus so you can catch up on and watch as many of the other presentations as possible. And as we have gone through the week, I guess the key for all of us, and when I talk about us, I am talking about our collective, especially the Western population, our Western consciousness in general. So the key is for us to stop for a moment and consider our relationship with our home, with planet Earth, Mother Earth, and to truly start to do something about it as opposed to taking quick fix options, putting on band-aid solutions, or just caught up in the what's very big in political arenas, the spin, the talk fest. We actually really need to be doing something. But this is not new because Indigenous peoples all around the globe have been trying to tell us this. We do not listen. So now for us in the West, we need to, is getting vitally important. And one of our biggest hurdles, I believe, is our entrenched patriarchal mindset, which even when we remove gender from the equation, tends to be all about power, seems to be about reward, competitiveness, inequality, and discrimination. Now, while there's nothing wrong with competitiveness, it is this underlying belief that we have where there can be only one winner, and the winner takes it all. And the loser has a fall, and now I'm beginning to sort of transgress back into my youth with ABBA, a Swedish pop band who was very popular in the 70s, 80s, and then even to the 90s. I think even today they're still around. So if you're a generation like myself, you know who I'm talking about. If you're not, you might want to Google them. But it's a distraction. So it's all this sort of talking at and this taking all that we see in our world today. It's this greed where more is better, where certain individuals and even corporations have so much, and it's obscene amounts. There are certain individuals whose personal wealth is more than some country. And the opposite side to this is that there is so many people now in our world, communities, even countries, that have so little. And this is one of the underlying awareness things for this conference, because this actually affects all of us. And it's more than our actions. It's our thoughts, it's our words, because all of these are interconnected, just as we are with our earth, our mother. And of course, if you have been here for the whole summit, you're probably more than likely already aware of this. So I'm only preaching to the converted, so to speak. But the next step is to stop this talk fest, stop talking about it, and start doing something about it, taking conscious action, making more conscious choices, looking at ways to bring us back into balance and also into alignment with Mother Earth. So before I go any further, I would like to just pause and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which I reside, that of the Kaurna people here in the Adelaide Plains in South Australia. And in doing so, I acknowledge their elders past, present, and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land of my birth, and also those of my own ancestors, without whom I would not be the person that I am today. And if you have come in from YouTube and you don't know who I am, my name is Frances Billinghurst, and this is the final day of Return to the Mother Online Summit. And you can find more about the summit in the links below. So I am just going to share my screen as we start with my presentation, which is all about returning to the mother. And I would like to start off with just a little point that if you are curious as to who the traditional owners of your land is, there is an amazing, I think it's a not-for-profit website, native-land.ca. I think it's a Canadian group that have put up this globe, and they are working on populating it with traditional custodians, Indigenous peoples from all around the globe. And if you are curious, please go and check them out because they are not-for-profit. Okay, so I'd like to start off with the return to the mother with this quote by the late Buddhist monk Thich Nhat. And he mentioned in an interview that if we, and talk about human beings, Western civilization in particular, if we have insight, we see that the earth is not only the environment, the earth is us. And taking care of the earth is taking care of ourselves. Many people get sick today because they are alienated from Mother Earth. They forget that they are on earth and that they have a body given by Mother Earth. Practice of mindfulness helps us to go back to our body, to touch Mother Earth inside our body, and also to touch the earth outside of our body. And this is something that Indigenous peoples have been trying to tell us, trying to share their knowledge with us. And while we, you and I personally, may be doing something about it, we as the collective are still operating on this extremely outdated mindset of more is better, that bigger is best, that external status symbols are important, which is often to the detriment of others. And there's another quote that I would like to share, and it comes from Unitarian philosopher John Stuart Mills, and is very often one of these quotes that is misquoted on the internet. Now, John Stuart Mills in 1867 delivered this inaugural address to the University of St. Andrews, I think it's the Scottish one, where he stated, "Let not anyone pacify his conscience by the delusion that he can do no harm, if he takes no part and forms no opinion. Bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than that good men should look on and do nothing. He is not a good man who, without a protest, allows wrong to be committed in his name, and with the means which he helps to supply, because he will not trouble himself to use his mind on the subject." And in other words, this is where we see wrong happening in the world and we do nothing. And when we do nothing, we are, in fact, and it's going to sound pretty hard, adding to the wrong. So we need to speak up. We need to take action and do something about it. Yet we also need to be mindful how we do this, because violence met with violence is what we're seeing around the world today, doesn't actually achieve anything. It just intensifies the situations. What we need to do is to bring this back to the theme, basically, of the summit, and to move more consciously away from the stranglehold of the patriarchal mindset, where, one is only up the top, one is the winner, to working more in harmony and in cooperation and compassion with others. And we do this by learning how to return to the mother. So take a moment and take a big breath. And if you like and are able to, maybe even close your eye and feel into your body. What does the word mother mean to you? How does the word mother, mama, ma, resonate with you? What is or was our relationship with our own mother? Did you even know your mother, your physical, biological mother, or even the female or the feminine presence, the person in your life who raised you, who took on that stereotypical mothering role? And I acknowledge that for some of us, this can be extremely hard, extremely difficult, especially if we were let down, if we were abused, even abandoned, or felt like we were abandoned by our first experience of mother. So just breathe. Be kind to yourself and allow these words just to sit in your body and to bring into your conscious awareness where they sit and how they make you feel. Before we move on to the archetype of mother, the one who portrays the feminine characteristics. And again, what do these actually mean? We hear about the mother, the maiden, the crone, the wise woman. Here, when we look at feminine archetypes, are we starting to create separation from masculine archetypes? Are we entering into duality and separatedness? If feminine is nurturing and nourishing, does that mean that masculinity cannot be these things? I disagree. I think masculinity can be nurturing and nourishing. just in different ways. Likewise, feminine can be strong and assertive, which are masculine qualities, albeit in different ways. And what about mother as a divinity? How does that sit with you? Now, divinity doesn't necessarily mean that it has to reside outside of ourselves, far, far away, completely separate from us. Science has proven that we are all made up of effectively stardust. We all contain the cosmos above us, within it. Just as we all once emerged from Mother Earth, Gaia, as above, so below. We are so intimately connected with everything around us. Yet many of us have forgotten. We have been chasing that glittery, shiny distractions that the patriarchal divide and conquer mindset has given us, that we have not realized the impact this has had upon us, on all of us, regardless of what side of the equation we are on, that of the conquerors or the suppressed. Well, the latter, I guess, are actually often very aware of what's happened. Whatever perception, description resonates with you, the next step is the important one. What happens from here? Where are you going? What are you going to do? What can we all do as a collective in order to move forward and create this new world that, especially within the spiritual world, everybody is talking about? How are we going to create this new world? Because we all have an intimate relationship with Mother Earth, our planet, Gaia, the very foundation of our being, and not just her. Also, the elements that are interconnected with her, as well as all the other beings that we cohabit in this space with. For too long, we, the collective we, have considered ourselves separate, even higher than Mother Earth, higher than all of her other beings. Yet this disconnection has not actually served us very well. So many of us are suffering. So many of us are sad and lonely, are disconnected, are experiencing isolation. Even surrounded by so many people, we are still experiencing this isolation. And then this is played out into the world around us, into the violence, not only directed at our external world, but we also create the violence towards us, other species, and our mother. We have forgotten that planet Earth is our mother. She is a living, breathing organism, yet we treat her as if she's a dead thing, a commodity. We take, ignorant or arrogant in the understanding that there are consequences for our action. And this is one of the basic universal laws, cause and effect. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Our forgetfulness, our amnesia has flowed through all aspects of femininity. How it's viewed, how it's talked about, both consciously as well as unconsciously. It appears in our language, our actions, our thought processes, all of which has been geared towards not only the separation, but a rather abusive treatment. The greed, the pillage, the over-harvesting, the over-consumeration, the hoarding. This all leads to scarcity, fear, and violence. And the cycle just keeps repeating. And there is fear, and so much fear and simply hatred generated towards the feminine, towards the female body, towards female power. And we see it in our world as patriarchy continues to control, reshape, suppress, hide, even ignore the feminine, female, the mother even exists. And it's not new. As we see in this image here in the classic myth, in the Greek myth. It's often taught in schools. Our first introduction to myth is usually through the classics. We see Athena being born from Zeus's head. Athena is a warrior goddess, albeit not as violent as Mars or Ares, but still here being born from Zeus, a male god. Maybe it's because deep inside of us, our ancestral memory reminds us, yes, all of us, that the great mother who birthed us, the archetypal feminine, is also the great destroyer. And in the Devi Mahatmya, it is stated that at that time, she herself is the great destroyer. Existing from all eternity, she herself becomes the creation. She, the eternal one, sustains all life. And it is our fear of rejection that is reflected in our ultimate insignificance. The simple fact that the Mother Earth really doesn't need us. We've seen this when we've gone through it, the pandemic. Mother Earth doesn't need us, but we need her. We all need her. And it doesn't have to be this way. There's still time to change. Each and every one of us can do something about this rather simply and in our unique way. And when we do, it's like a pebble being thrown into a pond, which is an analogy that I use a lot, because one small action can flow out, can ripple out, can cause change on deeper levels, on more profound level. So firstly, in order to heal ourselves, we need to heal our relationship with the earth, with Mother Earth, with Mother Nature. And we do this by returning to her, allowing ourselves to be immersed in her wonder and her beauty, to all her healing, and allow that to penetrate us. We do this by getting out in nature, whether it's your backyard, the local park, community garden, even deep wilderness. And even in the most densest concrete jungle, our mother is there. She's the wind that blows through our hair, the rain or sunshine on our face, that weed that's emerging up through the pavement. We just need to look up and we see that. So pause for a moment. As you go about your day and see if you can feel her around you through the elements, through the other beings we cohabit with. And when we can feel her, have this thought of what we are doing when corporations pollute her life-giving waters, the waters that some of us depend so heavily upon. What do we do when corporations destroy her forests, her lungs, the very lungs that enable us all to breathe by turning carbon dioxide into oxygen? We can't replace her ancient forests, yet we, the collective we, sell them for a price, for a status symbol. And when these are all gone, we replicate things with plastic. Plastic doesn't breathe, just like concrete doesn't breathe. And now, again, showing my age, I've got a Joni Mitchell song in my head. Please Paradise, got up a parking lot. If we have the means, we need to take responsibility. We need to make more conscious decisions in our everyday lives. What exactly is the price for our convenience? Do we really need to buy something like bananas in plastic wrapped bags? Do we need to purchase another plastic water bottle, drink bottle? Do we need to drive to the shop instead of walking? Do we really need 5 cheaply made t-shirts that will only last a season and then be chucked away or pushed to the back of our wardrobe with all the other cheaply made fast fashion items that these days actually have such a high content of plastic and polyester in them? And even when we do donate them, often they do not last. So the charity shops these days cannot truly repurpose them, recycle them, sell them on to somebody else, because they are fast fashion, they do not last. And of course, there are pros and cons. And I don't want to stand here preaching from my pedestal, but I do think we all need to take more responsibility in the role that we play and the role that we can play, especially if we have the means. We may not think we have the means, but for the majority of us in the West, even if we are living paycheck by paycheck, we do have the means to create even the small amount of change compared to other people who maybe don't even have a paycheck. So instead of burying our heads in the sand and expecting someone else to do things, we need to take action because this doesn't work. We need to think more and get out of the mindset that our actions will not affect someone else or somewhere else because maybe they're too far away. We are all interconnected. It's that butterfly effect where the butterfly flaps its wings in one part of the globe will eventually cause something to happen somewhere else. And as long as we continue to labor under this excessive yang, masculine energy, coupled with this insufficiency, really, of yin energy, we are going to see this continual decline. And as I said, it's not new. We have been laboring under this heavy yang energy for, I don't know, probably at least 3,000 years or so. It has really shaped how we view things, our perceptions, our language, the lens through which we look. And this is why we need to return back to the earth. We need to seek guidance from the indigenous cultures, societies today who still have this strong connection with the mother, with the divine feminine, who understand that the whole concept of life is cyclic. We need to remember too, especially from a Caucasian perspective, we were once indigenous of a land as well. So it's also our responsibility. It's becoming increasingly important that we all return to see that Mother Earth, the cosmos, humanity, is all interconnected, all interwoven as one. So our nature is, in fact, her nature. So how do we return to the mother? How do we live a more matriarchal or matrifocal existence in a world that is filled with these patriarchal structures? Is it possible to do this? Especially if this patriarchal viewpoint has been in our collective consciousness for some 3,000 plus years? Or do we create a completely different approach? Like anything, when it comes to change being required, this is at a deeper, more conscious level. And it's not a quick fix. It can be long and hard, exhausting. And some of us have been on this wavelength, these energetics for a while, but the energetics in the collective are changing, especially with the younger generations coming up. But patriarchy has instilled this ideological shift, this dismantling of power that, and it's interesting to see with even within societies and women's groups, women are almost wanting to connect with the divine feminine, the great goddess, but they're doing it through patriarchal mindset without even realizing. So it's important to sort of step back and really think of how we, as I said, do our work, speak our work, interact with our work. Do we only step into goddess or divine feminine consciousness when we do a workshop or an online presentation and not do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Or do we fully involve ourselves to the best of our ability? Because I know being human, sometimes it can be extremely difficult, but again, we need to be more consciously aware of when we do purchase the extra drink bottle that maybe we don't need and what we do with it afterward. So call it goddess consciousness, earth consciousness, whatever its roots are, interwoven and connected back to the concept of that first breath that effectively created the universe. This is something that Jude Caravan talked about in her presentation. And the more you think about it, this birthing breath that births the cosmos, this in effect is the primordial creatrix, where the ultimate source is being reflected as feminine, divine feminine. And when we do this, when we say fully embrace the plant medicines, the yogic asanas, the cacao ceremony, when we truly allow the mother, the deep primordial breath, into us, we realize we are all connected. We can rise into our consciousness, our conscious awareness that the primordial creatrix, the divine feminine, is not some romanticized, flightly being, easily manipulated, waiting doe-eyed to be swayed by our whims. Yes, she can be nurturing and nourishing. She is the bountiful mother after all, but she can also be raw power, raw energy. She is the very point from which all life emerged. She is also that black hole, that portal where all life will return to, regardless of what patriarchal influential lens has told us, out of which we are operating. We will still return back to the mother. So I feel it is important to spend a little time just briefly looking at Gaia's own story. This was found within Greek mythology, for those who are not aware, which later became part of Western civilization. And in these stories, Gaia is or was one of the primordial deities, the Titans, that rose out of chaos, pulsating a light, a life of her own, dancing her own self, earth, into creation, because she needed a place to place her feet upon. And as she did, the sky god Uranus was attracted to her beauty. He was so overwhelmed that heaven, Uranus, earth, Gaia were locked together in almost perpetual lovemaking, out of which all beings on earth were birthed into existence. And this continued until Gaia birthed something different. A creature that had 300 hands, 50 heads. And when she presented this child towards the father, Uranus, he rejected the offspring. He was repulsed by it because it was different. And thus created this rupture in this divine harmony of all creation. And the child, in its pain of rejection, became the monster. The rejection of the father created the first monster. And in the underworld, the monstrous children were filled with their rage and their hatred, and so was Gaia, when she discovers that Uranus had been suppressing her children. From her viewpoint, all her children were beloved. They were all loved. Yet Uranus only wanted his offspring to look a certain way. And this caused the great separation between angels and monsters, or devils, as Christianity has called them. One of Gaia's children, Cronus, whose name means time, eventually severed Uranus's genitals, releasing the father, enabling the father to ascend far into the heavens, far away from this rage of the mother. And this was the moment where heaven and earth were separated, where the split occurred, where Uranus has been ever since, and which has continued to be echoed within Western society and Western civilization, that apparently went with Uranus. And one of the monsters we see here, the Cyclops with the one eye, And to the right, we see Cronus overthrown Uranus. So when we look at the story on a more personal level, we attempt to leave behind the painful aspect of ourselves, the monsters, and the pain of living on Earth. And we have created these spiritual ideals, society ideals, cultural ideals, a somewhat uprooted human being, pushing not only everything else into the shadow that we dislike, but this separation has actually resulted in us seeing the body as a part, as the other, and not the other as in divine. The other is just separate from us. We see it as something that we can exploit, we can control, we can modify. And the more we continue separating ourselves from Mother Earth, from Gaia, from the whole aspect of the divine feminine, the creatrix, the destroyer, the more we step into the patriarchal mindset. The separation of heaven and earth comes back to the misunderstanding that Gaia and Uranus, that sky and earth, that matter and spirit are all part of the same wholeness. They're not separate. We may be able to exist in this uprooted, separated perception of reality for a time being, but for most of us, it is only going to be a matter of time where we hear these calls from the shadow, where we feel this tug from the mother to return home, to return to wholeness, to return to our true, authentic self, and not someone else's interpretation or perception of light and love. So how can we do this? As I said at the beginning, there are simple ways, because returning to the mother is simple as going out to the park once a week, closing your eyes and just listening to Mother Earth, listening to the wind, to the ocean, to the creek, to the birds, whatever may be around you. Looking out your window if you're not able to get out, looking up at the sky. Sometimes sit with your eyes open and just observe. What do you see around you? Look at the wind. Look at the trees move or the waves move with the wind. Look at the ocean. Smell the scent of the ocean, the spray on the breeze. Even look at the dirt beneath your feet, the asphalt, the stones, the geology. Alternatively, returning to the natural cycles, becoming more conscious of the role that they play within our own lives, acknowledging them, aligning ourselves with them, bringing their awareness into our consciousness more and with more purpose. Because we have a connection with the cycles of the sun, of sunlight, of darkness, of dawn, of dusk. These are liminal times that can actually contain great potency, great magic, great mystery, and allow us to naturally align with the changing hours of daylight, of night. And this in itself regulates our hormones in our body, our levels of serotonin and melatonin. There is also the awareness of aligning ourselves with the lunar cycles. And there has been a increase in lunar magic these days of manifesting at the new moon or the waxing moon and banishing at the waning moon. And this is a great place to start, but we need to take it deeper. We need to sit with the moon, connect with the moon as it ebbs and flows through all of its phases. And I talk more about this in my book on a silver ray. I'll plug there. The book is available online, also through my Etsy store, or I also have a self-paced course about working with the moon on Udemy, and with a online course coming up in March next year, 2025, through the College of Psychic Studies in the UK. Nice little plug. We can also return to the mother through her own cycles, seasonal cycles, again ebbing and flowing with them. This is the dance between Mother Earth Gaia and Sun Helios. Maybe first taking notice of the solstices and the equinoxes, the times of equal day and night at the equinoxes, or the time of greater sun or greater darkness at the solstices. And within various earth-centric spiritual traditions, there is also the observances that within my tradition are called gateways or portals, the beginning of each season. And these are derived from their cultural festivals, mostly from Ireland and England, and even a Nordic festival known as Yule for midwinter. So we can connect in with those. We can learn who our Indigenous peoples are, of the land that we're on, and are they offering any courses, or is there any information that they are sharing as to how they connected in with the land that we're residing in. We can also eat more seasonally available vegetables. This is also a good way of cutting down costs of food. So when we eat vegetables, fruit and vegetables which are in season. Also taking note as to when they are in season, as opposed to being simply available on supermarket shelves, where they have often been artificially ripened, therefore their nutritional level is lower. We could learn to grow our own vegetables if we have space, or support farmers market. Getting out of this mentality that we want everything now. We want strawberries in the middle of winter, even though they are a summer fruit. Again, as I mentioned earlier, spend more time out in nature itself, in your local park, walking barefoot on the ground. Also sitting and listening to Mother Earth's heartbeat. Is always. Then we can connect in with her cosmic cycles. Now, we don't need to have to learn astrology. Even just spending time outside, gazing at the stars, observing the greater cycles of the planets and other cosmic happenings, because these affect us on a more energetic level than maybe we are consciously aware of. And it also is good to remind ourselves just how interconnected we are. So that is a lot to think about. And as I mentioned from the beginning, and I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here, it's good to listen, to watch, to see what other people are doing, but we need to start doing something ourselves. And I hope that you have been inspired by the presentations in the summit and have got some ideas as to how to take things a little bit further. And if you are interested in what I do, you are welcome to hop over to my website, which is Mystical Soul Academy. It's at mysticalsoulacademy.com. And I do have some offerings coming up. Just need to hit, if you've got a small screen like I do, these 3 bars here, and they will show you what I have under offerings. You can scroll down to past life regression. I have on the 6th of December an online workshop that I'm doing through the College of Psychic Studies in the UK. It will be live streamed and also recorded because the time zones don't work out. This is sort of like looking at ourselves on a more deeper spiritual level. Here in Adelaide in January, I always do, or as much as I can, in the first full moon, and honouring to Yamaya. She is an Orisha of the waters, of the oceans. I think it's a really nice way to connect in with our waters here. And some other things I've got coming up. In particular, I just want to show you embracing the shadow that's not, oh, that's payment, but go back up to here, embracing the shadows. This is sort of my benchmark course, because I had this interest in mythology and using it in a sort of pseudo-psychological way of getting into our shadow work. So embracing the shadows, rebirthing the new is the 7-part embodiment adventure, where we use sacred myth. So in particular, the Ishkakul and Inanna story, looking at both ends. We also look at Medusa, Persephone, Kali, who is a personal favorite of mine. We also go into intergenerational trauma or wounding over the 7 modules. It is held live, but again, it is recorded for those where the time zone doesn't marry up, because I am in Australia. So we just scroll down. So it's starting on the 6th of February, which may actually be the 5th of February, depending on where you are in the world. We're using sacred myth, we're using sacred symbolism. And the whole idea is to do our underworld journey and learn about the gifts that are in the shadows. So this is deep cellular work. As I mentioned in the presentation, when we do work at this deeper level, it's not a quick fix. It is not beautiful and gentle. It can be gut-wrenching. But when we emerge out, we are transformed. Think about it like a caterpillar going into a chrysalis. And as it transforms into a butterfly, it actually dissolves. Actually, a caterpillar actually dissolves into, I think, a little mushy, slimy substance before the butterfly emerges. And this is what deeply integrating shadow work is all about, not just identifying triggers. That's only part of the journey. It is a whole journey. It's a whole process of getting deep and dirty. So you can read about the course curriculum, just keep scrolling down to prepare for our descent as we then move through the innocence, the ignorance of Persephone, or Kore as she originally was, how we remove our illusions. Kali's a great one for doing that. How we then step into our authentic self through, as Persephone did, taking those seeds from the pomegranate. How we then look at the masks we are wearing. It's through that realization, that awareness that, hey, we're not living according to us. We are living because of all these boundaries being put on us, all these images being put on us. then we have to address the ghosts of the past, because everything's a domino effect. When we change our reaction to situations, when we become aware as to why we're doing things, bringing things consciously out there, we can then take more responsibility and change our lives and also the lives for future generations. And then finally, we ascend completely, integrating everything. So that is my embracing the shadows and rebirthing the new course. So I'll stop the self-promotion there. And once again, thank you very much for being part of Return to Another Online Summit. For people who have purchased or upgraded to unlimited lifetime access, 20% of all monies received will be donated to the Global Women's Project, which is a not-for-profit or non-profit organization here in Australia that actually helps women-centered organizations and even women themselves in countries such as Nepal and Cambodia, helping them with the funds, the resources to get up and going, to continue supporting women in their own local community. So wherever you are, take a breath. Be kind to yourself. We are still going through chaotic times as a collective. And this is why we need to return to the mother. And taking that first step by simply being, by connecting, by being out in nature, by realizing that we are all interconnected, is probably one of the most important steps. Because when we feel that connection, we realize that we're no longer isolated, we're no longer separated. We also realize our own responsibility to start taking affirmative action of our thoughts, our words, how we present in our life, especially if we want to create this new world for everyone else going forward from here. So, Natalia, thank you very much for being part of the summit. And if you want to keep in touch, sign up for the Mystical Soul Academy newsletter. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Blessings.